Hey guys, Doug Giles here, and it's Warriors! Boink!
And Wildmen.
Hey man, we got a hot topic. We've been kicking it around the last couple of podcasts. Thrill me. Why don't you bring the Warrior and Wildmen listener to speed, if they're uninitiated, to the topic and do a quick review before we start plowing fresh, fallow soil.
Because you definitely need to go back and listen to the first two. It's not that this won't be good by itself, but the other stuff's really good. The title of what we're doing on these three podcasts is The Mind of a Champion, 7 Traits to Becoming Your Best. It's based on an article from USA Today by a guy named Eric Brady, and the article was called Soul of a Champion, and the subtitle was Athletes Share a Common Thread. And so the concept is that the greatest athletes had 7 things in common, probably a lot more than that, but for his article, 7 things. And I've adjusted these points a little bit so that we could apply them to our life, because most of us are not trying to be super athletes, we're trying to be super people. The interesting thing about this topic is that these 7 things are not like, you got to be 6'5", 265 pounds, and be able to make, a three-pointer all day long. It's not that type of thing. These are mindsets. And so that's why it's called the mind of a champion. So these things apply definitely to our life, to anything that you want to do. You have to have the mind of a winner, a mind of a champion. So just quickly, the first one was head and heart. You got to have head and heart. That's confidence, and you got to have courage. We talked about courage recently on Warriors and Wildmen. Second thing is the drive to be the best, competitiveness. The third was confidence, self-confidence, and we flipped that, and we called it confidence in Christ, but also believing, not just believing in Christ, but believing that Christ will use me. That's what we were talking about on the podcast. And where we left off last time was on composure. And composure was how are you able to handle the crunch? In that moment, are you a clutch player in life? And then the second part of composure was how do you handle failures? How do you come back? Because, like we were talking about in a game, you mess up, you can't stay and focus on where you mess up, you're going to lose the game. You got to be able to turn the page and keep on rolling. So, if those things sound like things you need to go back and listen to the podcast. If they don't sound like things you need to go back and listen to the podcast, because they're what you need. So
yeah, and I gotta add to that, Rich. We traverse some deep streams in those 2 podcasts, so it's not just typical rah-rah championship bullet points. We deep dive in that, and
very practical and personal application.
Yeah, and again, on these kind of topics, it's rare that you get people to go a little deeper than splashy areas.
Yep.
So what do we got next, big dog?
So the next one we're talking about, this is the mindset of a champion. Okay, this is one of the traits. Number 5, focus. And this is what Cohn said. He's a sports psychologist. He said, the idea is to give focus and attention to what's most important. And when you do get distracted, to refocus quickly. This is the key component to success in sports, such as gymnastics and diving, but it's important in all sports. I think that's awesome, Doug. Check it out. To give focus and attention to what's most important, and when you do get distracted, to refocus quickly. Come on, man. Come on. Tell me you got something on that.
Hebrews 12, when you're talking about the focus aspect, it says, fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. Run the race that's set before you, throwing aside all things that hinder, the sin that besets, and
take your hands off your knees.
And put blinders on. But the whole thing is fix your eyes upon Jesus. I believe the Greek word for fix is not just not just laser beam onto Christ, but it has a connotation, Rich, of turning your eyes away from and your back to everything else that tries to
That's good, man.
Scream for your attention.
That's really
so
good.
It's not just I'm just going to include Jesus and I'm going to ask him to help me here. No, it's you're focused on it, and to the exclusion of other stuff. Not saying it's evil. Not saying that some things don't require our attention. But Christ's like, look at me. Keep looking at me, man. Look at that cloud of witnesses. Look at these badasses that have gone before you. Look what I went through on the cross and how I plowed through some of the the most torturous things known to mankind. Keep your eye on me. We're going to blow through this. And you know what? We're going to be sitting at the right hand of the Father, wearing a peignoir and eating ice cream with Jesus. Boom.
Come on, somebody. Check this out.
Hey, have you noticed that every angel that is depicted looks like Florence and the Machine and those draperies that she wears and stuff? However, Rich, I've noticed in the Bible that there's no female angels. All of them are badasses. Anytime anybody ever sees an angel, they drop like a dead man. You know, it's like, that ain't even Jesus. And they see an angel, go, poof.
Yeah, when I read about them, they have way too many eyes. They're in the wrong place and wings and things.
They got swords.
And people don't see angels and go, look, an angel. They go, oh, no.
Yeah, they're not little fat babies, you know, that look like they got a good buzz going from their mother's milk that's been liberally mixed with Mountain Dew and Nuprin. They're badass instruments of vengeance, and there are ministering spirits, according to Hebrews as well.
Yep. So
but anyway, I digress, man.
When we talk about focus, this guy Williams, he interviewed 1,500 people for a book on Michael Jordan, and he found, check this out, everybody he talked to about Jordan, they all came down to this thing, and he got this from all of them. He had the uncanny ability to block out distractions, zero in on what's important. It was like he was in a total vacuum, totally zoned in. I think that's the hallmark, really, of a champion. Focus, focus, focus. And I like what you said, Doug, because it gives some great context and application for our lives. Is it's not just looking at Jesus, but it is turning your back to some things. And some people are like, man, how come my life isn't changed? It's like, you have to change your thinking. And they're like, no, tell me what to do. It's like, okay, that's religion. You got to change your heart. Your heart's in the center of your mind. Got to renew your mind. Got to change your thinking. You got to focus. And it's like, wait, I come to church on Sunday. All right? Well, we got you focused for an hour and a half in 7 days.
I've noticed something is that when I go to church, you know, it doesn't make somebody a Christian. It's like going to McDonald's and all of a sudden they're, boom, a Big Mac or something.
Yeah, or sitting in the garage, you know, makes you a Chevy, or hanging out at a donut shop makes you a cop or something, right? So anyway, dude, did I tell you one time I was in Indonesia? I was in Bali. It was on a national holiday, and this is a complete rabbit trail, but it's amazing. I was in Bali, and it's a Hindu island in a mostly Muslim country. And so it was one of their Hindu holidays. So their police officer was wearing this traditional robe and the traditional men's like Balinese hat type thing, very colorful. And he's standing there with his armband and everything. Doug, on the side of the road, standing there with a donut in his hand. I saw that and I told the driver, I was like, stop. Go back. You have to turn around. He's like, no, too much traffic. I said, no. You do not understand. This is internationally important.
Yeah, I don't think that's. I don't
love donuts.
I don't think that's. I don't think that's a rabbit trail. He was focused, man.
He was focused
on the donut,
on being a cop.
Hey, you know what? You know what I find interesting about the whole focus aspect is, man, if you ain't focused, if you don't know what you're called to do, if you're not locked on to the target, then OMG, man, is there a lot of people going to give you stuff to do?
Yep.
There's a lot of people that are going to be time bandits. They're going to suck the living daylights out of you. They're going to derail you. They're going to throw little fires and have you run over there and try to put them out. Instead of you focusing on what's important, they're going to focus you on what's urgent. And you'll wake up like at 50 and like, what the hell happened to my life? I did everything for everybody except finding, following, and finishing my course with Christ.
Yep.
People, if you don't know what you're called to do, then oh my God. Will other people tell you what to do?
Oh, they'll figure it out for you. You know what? I don't remember the title of the book, but I read a book about that, and it was on management, and it was saying that there's a whirlwind, and the whirlwind is your emergencies. And he says what happens is the urgent starts taking priority over the important. And he said,
Steve
and we
Covey.
start to, is it Steve Covey? No, was it Steve Covey? It was?
They stole it from Steve Covey, who
they
stole it from Moses and Jesus.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Whoever stole it from whoever, I don't even know whoever, and I'm still in it today, except for I'm not still in it. So I read it in a book. So anyway, I think that happens a lot of times. We say, okay, this is important, but then something urgent happens, and some people live their life in urgent, and so they're never focused. So it's like, oh my gosh, everything's crazy. It's
let me give you.
This is the most important thing right here. You need to get on.
Yeah. Let me give you an example, man. Okay. I'm an artist. I've got commissions, got great clients. And Rich, when I start painting, you know what I do? I turn my phone off, put it in airplane mode, because that thing goes off constantly.
Yep.
And if I had it behind me on the back table, across from my easel, and I had the little notifications going off all the time, No, I'd be jacking with my mind. Not only is it keeping me off the canvas, but here's a great example of focusing. I'm doing a turkey head, okay? A wild turkey. Have you ever gotten real up close to a frickin' wild turkey head?
I've seen them taxidermy.
That's a complicated little thing to pull off. And man, I'm sitting up there and I'm like, and I'm painting it and I'm doing all the subtle nuances because it looks like a droopy, long, old dude's ball sack with like pimples and bulges and all kinds of loose, floppy turkey neck type skin hanging off. And it's got reds, it's got Prussian blues, it's got magentas, it's got all these emerald type tones just working through that. And not only is the alerts from the phone and the text messages and whatever other stupid apps that I'm going to remove from my phone after this podcast, not only would that take me from doing the actual work, but man, sometimes whatever God's called you to do, whatever your job is, you got to come in there and seriously get detailed and focused. And man, you cannot have morons that will interrupt you on any whim. When I was a pastor and stuff, I'd be at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd get a phone call, and it's like, oh my God, because usually phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody's dead, right? I mean, normally, especially when you get up to my age, 55, your buddies start dropping like flies and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, what is it? It's like, hey, it's like, he goes, this guy called me, he goes, I'm really dealing with an issue right now. It's like, oh my God, what happened? And I said, my girlfriend blocked me from Facebook. I'm like, you called me at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah,
newsflash,
she's not your girlfriend, and I'm not your counselor.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's the tyranny of the urgent instead of the importance of what you're supposed to be focused on. And the achievers versus, those who just sit and dream and get nothing. That, I think, Rich, critical key. You got to focus. This guy's like, how do you write your books? How do you come up with it? Dennis Miller told me one time, 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration.
That's
you just sit down, you frickin' write. That's how it happens.
Well, and here's what happens if you let people take up your time. When I first started ministry, you're quote unquote full time and you're doing your thing. So everybody thinks I'm going to stop by and talk to you for 2 hours, and they start doing this stuff, And the funny thing is, I have a problem with this, I have a problem with that. Next thing you know, everybody's taking up your whole day. None of my work is done. They all go home to go watch TV and hang out with their kids. I go home and study until 2 a.m.
Rich,
so I started saying, hey, office is closed. I am
perfect
closed.
example, man. Perfect example for ministers. If you're in the ministry and you've got an Ephesians 4 gifting on you, I'm talking about that ascended type thing where you upset the planet. Then you got to do what they did in the book of Acts when all of a sudden all these women are sitting around, they're getting hungry. And when women get hungry, they get hangry, right? and they're bitching and moaning and wailing that they're a little bit peckish and they're not getting fed. And the apostles are there. It's like, you know what? We're supposed to give ourselves to prayer and the study of the word.
That's right.
Stephen, hey man, you're full of faith in the Holy Ghost. Why don't you serve these people? Again, they need to eat. Again, you don't want to get women angry. But that's not the apostles' frickin' job, man.
Right. They weren't saying it wasn't important. It just wasn't my job. It's your job.
And he said our job is Word of God and prayer. Everything else, don't even talk to me about it. Because I'm supposed to meet with Jehovah, and I'm supposed to come down from the mountain with some thus saith the Lord type stuff, and I can't do it slinging hash.
And for the regular warriors and wildmen type of guy out there, maybe you're in school, maybe you're working, have a family, doing your deal. Here's the thing. Whatever you need to change in your life, you have to focus on. You can't just kind of hit and miss. If it's your finances, you got to get on a budget, got to focus on it, man. And you got to put a lot more thought time into it at the beginning as you're renewing your mind until you get where you're going. And as you grow through that, you can focus on something else. Whatever it is, you focus on the next thing as you start to develop those things in your life. I remember when I first became a Christian, this lady started prophesying over me. And she actually, no, it was a guy. This is a guy. And he prophesies over me and he says this. He says, I see in the spirit, you're like a shotgun. And Doug, I was like, Heck yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. He said, you got a lot of power, but you're all over the place. And I was like, wait a minute, that didn't sound that good, right? Because I thought it was a compliment. Actually, it was
Just diss me, boy.
Actually, it was God telling me you're not focused. You're all over the place, and it was true because I had a lot of zeal. I wanted to help people, but I wasn't focused, and you can't make a difference like that, right? And then he said this. He said, "But God wants to discipline you and turn you into a sniper." And I was like, "Well, all right then."
Get down.
Now we're talking. And I was thinking, how come I feel like there's going to be years between these two things? And then he says, and one day you could be a shotgun with sniper accuracy. I moonwalked out of there under the Holy Ghost. I was like, see you guys later. I'm out of here. I'm going to give an offering, hit my house, man. Do some dancing and stuff. It was pretty awesome. But I'm not trying to brag about that. I'm still waiting for all that to come true. But the reality is, it doesn't matter how sincere you are and how much you're trying. Without focus, you're not going to accomplish something great. Doesn't matter if it's job, marriage, kids, whatever you're doing, you got to focus.
Do you remember this old lady named Iverna Tompkins?
Oh, yeah. I met her.
You know Iverna. Okay, so
she is awesome.
No, so check this out. And she's one of the greatest preachers, male or female, animal, vegetable that I've ever heard in my life, man. And she was rocking and rolling, and I was probably about a 2-year-old believer, just full of fire and stupidity, and she probably should have been locked in a cage for like 14 years, like Paul out in the desert or something. And anyway, I come up to her and I said, I want to marry a woman just like you. And she goes, are you proposing?
Yes.
No, but check this out. And I said, look, she did a message on Elijah. I said, man, that so resonates with me. I feel, prophetic edge and stuff. I go, what would you tell, a young squab like me? And she took her big Bible. I mean, remember when you used to bring Bibles to church and stuff?
And she had a big one.
Bro, she took her big Bible and she rolled it up and she stuck it right in my face and she said, eat the scroll.
Yeah, man.
That's all she said. And here's what I did. And I was in a college group, Rich, and you know how sassy college groups can become.
Never been a
part. And everybody's going to this movie, and everybody's going to this Christian concert, and everybody's going to this cover dish dinner. And I nearly heard God audibly tell me, it's like, you sit alone. You study my word. I wore out 4 leather-bound Bibles in 3 years.
Wow.
After she told me to eat the scroll.
Yep.
Now, I don't know what the other guys in my college group have done with their life and ministry. I know what God's done with mine. And it all was predicated back to the point where Iverna, powerful woman of God with like Elsa Lancaster black and gray hair, man, Bride of Frankenstein type stuff, told me, you focus, you eat this. Don't worry about what all the other boys and girls are doing.
It's good.
Eat the scroll. And you know what? We had about 400 or 500 people in our college group, and there were some good-looking chicks there. I didn't date a girl for like 14 months, man. No dating, study, prayer, street evangelism, prison ministry. And then, look what happened.
Yep, you won.
Yeah. No, and it's, again, it wasn't perfect. I had some botched do-si-dos in the square dance of life. But the focus aspect, you can't get around it. If you're going to excel in whatever you're talking about and you're going to glorify God, then, man, he's going to rivet your attention. He'll get it one way or the other. I would come willingly and compliant versus the other ways like Jonah had to go through.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you got to get focused. Got to renew your mind. You want things to change? Got to focus. You can't kind of wish. Can't be hit and miss. Got to focus. You want to be a champion at anything, you have to focus. Next thing, number 6, spirituality. Mind, body, and spirit. Check out what the author Eric Brady writes here. Plato was a Greek sports geek, an avid wrestling fan known to have attended the ancient Olympics. He also believed the soul was eternal and that human knowledge was just a remembering of what the soul knew before birth. The Greeks worshipped human excellence. This is by Maris Bernstein. The great athletes competed naked. The statues we have from the Greeks show human beings as strong and beautiful and healthy. Michelangelo revived that in the Renaissance. And this sort of worship of the human body is almost religious. And so what they're talking about is that the reason that they competed naked, because everything wasn't sexual like it is now. I mean, they were obviously a very sexual society. But when it came to sports, the human body was beautiful. And so they competed naked because they wanted to see the human body performing, right?
I'm gonna take off my shirt right now, man.
If you're going to be performing. So
right.
Anyway, it was something that they cherished. It was something they respected. And so the thing that happened was that these people, they believed that even in their sports, that it was an aspect of their soul. It's not just the body and the soul. Those things are together, right? And then I was talking to you about this, just about this recently, is that philosophy used to always start with, who is God? Where do we come from? I mean, that's philosophy, right? But then philosophy became secularized, and we have theology and philosophy, and now they try to separate. To me, it makes no sense. Now we're going to not talk about God. We're going to go over here and talk about stuff. Okay, you're an idiot. And so, you have natural theology too, and all of that stuff. But basically, they separated the spiritual from the physical. And so nowadays, we protract that out to where we're at today. And this is going to sound like I'm changing subjects, but I'm not. Chael Sonnen, he was a pretty good MMA fighter, He almost beat Anderson Silva, actually beat him up for 4 rounds and about half of the 5th round, and then he got caught in a triangle, transitioned to an armbar, and tapped out. But anyway, he was doing great, and later on, he got busted for performance-enhancing drugs. And all these guys that get busted with performance-enhancing drugs, they all say the same type of things. Well, I don't know. It must have been a tainted substance. Somebody gave it to me. Somebody tricked me. Somebody put it in my stuff.
I thought it was a jelly bean.
And then it's like, yeah, we got cocaine in your blood, bro. So anyway, not him, but other people they did. John Jones. So anyway, Chael Sonnen, when they busted him, they said, okay, here's the deal. What's up? He said, oh, yeah, I'm using performance-enhancing drugs. And they said, what? He said, oh, yeah, I have 14 performance-enhancing drugs that I take on a pretty regular. And they were like, what? He just totally came clean. And so you know what they did for that, Doug? They banned him for life and banned him from the UFC. He can't commentate, can't anything. The other guys that are lying and making excuses, they're all good to go. They get a couple-year suspension.
You can't tell the truth.
And you know what he said? They asked him, they said, why would you do that? And I heard him on a podcast. He's actually a really funny guy. He said, well, it's obvious the reason I did it. He said, because I can't compete with those guys without it. I'm not good enough. And they were like,
well, he should have said that he was a woman, and then he could have
okay.
fight the women.
But it's funny because he said that, and he says, look, a lot of people are using them. They're trying to compete. I'm not able to compete at that level without them. I'm not as good as them. So later he fought a guy, before, and they asked him, when you fought this guy back in the day, because that guy later also popped for performance-enhancing drugs, they asked Chael Sonnen, and they said, do you think he was using steroids when you fought him? And he said, not more than me. That was his answer. He's like very honest guy, right? Okay.
Right.
So I bring that up now. People see the body as a machine and they don't connect the soul. You have a sport like MMA, winning is winning. We don't care. We've taken out all responsibility to God, all responsibility to tell the truth. And then now you can use whatever you can use as long as you get away with it to make the machine produce. And it doesn't make any sense. But that's what's happening with people today, too. I want my life to be great, but I'm going to separate my soul and my spirituality from my life. They start compartmentalizing their life. Not just physical, but they're like, this is my work life, this is my social life, this is my church life.
An example of that, and he's had a rough go of it in the NFL. I think Tim Tebow, I think he did great college ball, Heisman Trophy, right? Did he win the Heisman? I can't remember.
Yep. He did.
Yeah. He integrates God into his craft, into his sport, and it goes back. All the stuff you're talking about in regards to the mindset of a champion and the integral parts of it. It's Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, and whatever it is, do it heartily with your soul unto God, because it's for Him and to Him. And it's not just for men or for mankind. It's an act of worship, and it's not less godly than going on mission trips.
No, it's not.
It's not less godly than being a pastor or a missionary, or in some form of ministry. I thank God that Martin Luther freed everybody's brains. Like, hey, are you a cobbler? Do you make shoes? You a blacksmith? And you make knives and, tools to work with and plow the earth and all that other stuff. He said, you know what? That is your calling.
Yep.
That should be done with the most spiritual, sacred type of notion and approach as anything in regards to the practical service of the Lord on the Sabbath and Monday through Saturday.
Yep.
That is what you do. That is
That's
your
right.
ministry.
That's good, man. 1 Corinthians 9:24-27 says, and you know these verses, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. And then verse 25, everyone who competes in the game goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that'll last forever. Therefore, I do not run like a man running aimlessly. I do not fight like a man beating the air. No, I beat my body and I make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified from the prize.
Hello.
And so its success is not good enough. We have to do it for God. Like, you don't separate your spirituality from your activity, whether it's sports or anything. You want to be a champion. Your spirituality, like you're saying, Doug, it has to be very much integral in whatever you're doing in your life, your job, family,
Chick-fil-A it, man.
whatever.
Chick-fil-A
That's
it.
right. That's right.
Yeah, Dan Cathy, it's like, hey, we're gonna make this yummy little chicken sandwich. Throw a pickle on there, call it good, and you know what? This is Sola de Gloria, and we're not going to be open on Sundays. And I believe I believe they're raking in cash by the billions of dollars because they took that little chicken sandwich and their desire to feed the multitudes and said, we're gonna give everybody a day off. In honor of God's Sabbath rest. They didn't divorce, their championship mindset from worship.
And then let's wrap it up with this last one, number 7.
Do it.
Child's play. A champion, the mind of a champion, you enjoy life and you see it like child's play. This is what the Cohn, this sports psychologist, said. He said, I think the great athletes go back to their childhood. They go back to the love of their game. And then he wrote this about Gretzky, Wayne Gretzky. Come on, he has the best nickname, the great one. I love it. Gretzky grew up as a skinny kid with blonde bangs and big ears who skated endlessly on the rink that his father built in his backyard in Ontario, complete with lights strung on a wire from the neighbor's garage for night games. Years later, when he played under the bright lights of the NHL, the soul of the game remained anchored in his boyhood. Listen what Gretzky says. It never left me. Even when I became a champion, I always had the same feeling I had in the backyard. You know what the problem is? Too many times in life, man, we start getting this thing where everything's a burden, everything's a grind. I try to remind myself, because I can become a very serious, negative, critical, cynical person. I have to remind myself to stop and look around and see things for the first time, to meet people and pay attention to them and see the great things. And those are the great things of life. If we take all of that out of it, it's just a grind, man. And there's nothing wrong with the grind. But man, we got to be like little kids, and the Bible says to be childlike. We know that in our faith.
Bro, that's why I dig so much being in close proximity to my grandkids, because like you said, man, we deal with heavy issues. We deal with I wouldn't say it's big business, but it's it is lucrative, and or it used to be before Facebook came along, and it is serious, and it reaches a lot of people, and that kind of stuff can make you a dour little monkey.
Yep.
And I can sometimes, man, get so gloomy that I make Van Gogh look like a damn rodeo clown. And but when the grandkids come over, man, we're shooting BB guns. We got the bug of salt. We're whacking flies. And Zeke, you got to send me those videos of those slow motion fly thing. That thing will go super mega nuclear viral. The most hilarious videos we shot when you guys were here. But those little kids, man, sitting on in daddy's arm or granddad's arms, man, takes you back. And again, it focuses you, like you said, on being a kid again. And don't lose that. Don't lose it in work. Don't lose it in ministry. Again, don't become that gloomy little sad sack of crap that's walking around with your head down.
Why we do what we do. And then remember, everything doesn't have to be terrible.
And listen, if you're a Christian, especially, you know, one of the traits that you are born again and you are in the kingdom is this thing called joy. And you look at most Christians, man, they look like they've been sucking on the most sour lemons known to mankind. You see them dragging their ass into church and it's like Dawn of the Dead. These zombies filing in.
They're the ones sucking the faith out of the room.
And brother, you're up there and you're hitting the vein. You should be getting amens, and everybody's just like looking at you like a calf looking at a new gate. And you're sitting there wondering, it's like, I wonder why people aren't listening to the gospel message when you preach it. Well, why don't you look more saved? Why don't you have a smile on your face for once?
Yeah, is that so terrible?
Laugh? Hello.
I heard,
unbelievable.
Hey, a guy said that came and visited our church recently, and he came from another church, and he kind of wanted to see what was going on at our church. And after I got done preaching, he talked to one of my guys, and he told him, he said, well, this first part's funny. He says, well, he used a lot of scripture in that sermon, and I really like that. And I thought, what the hell are the other people talking about? But anyway, he said that, and then he said, but he was quite silly. And when he told me that, I think that guy didn't mean it in a positive way, Doug, but I cracked up. You want to know why? Because some stuff is rough and some stuff is fun, man. Hey, everything doesn't have to suck. Like even in the tough times, we can have joy in the tough times. Remember, be like a little kid.
Look at Paul and Silas. Here they are in a Philippian jail, and it's midnight. They just had the holy crap beat out of them.
Yep.
And what do those guys start singing? Swing low, sweet chariot? No, they're raising their voice. They're thanking God. They just got the holy shnikey beat out of them. And all the other prisoners think they've lost their damn mind. And then next thing you know, bam! All the prison doors swing open.
Yep.
And it came because of their joy, because of their song. It's like, hey, you're not going to knock that out of me. Yeah. I'm not going to lose that. When you lose the joy, man, then
you're
it's a
trouble.
Grind.
That's
then
right.
It's the oil to the engine, and you'll blow it if you don't have regular doses of irregular fun.
A pastor I used to work with one day, he had this serious situation. It was logistics. They had to move a church of 120,000 people by the weekend to have services somewhere else, and he was the guy, and he was out of the country.
Is he bald now?
No, but check it out. He walked up to me and he told me, "Hey, man, I'm not going to be able to go today. I got to take care of this. This is what's going on." I was like, okay. And I said, are you okay? Are you all right? And he looks at me, Doug, and he smiles, and he goes, I love my life. And he wasn't being sarcastic.
This,
it's like, man, I was born for this. This is how I roll. And then, it should be child's play. Because
and here's another thing, Rich, just practical. I wrote a book, If You're Going Through Hell, Keep Going, right before I went through a lot of hell with the acorn stuff with Hannah's investigation. And one of the things that a chapter in there is God gave wine. Have a glass of wine, man. Just chill out. Have 2 glasses of wine.
If you're an alcoholic or under 21 years old, do not have a glass of wine. Go ahead. Those are disclaimers.
Yeah. Other than that, it's Jesus made 12 vats of that stuff after people already got snackered on the former 12, and he made better stuff, more intoxicating stuff. And not only that, but Psalm 109, God gave wine to make the heart merry.
Yep.
Lighten up. Watch comedies. Like if I'm in some funk and I'm like, serious Doug mode, and I've done all the things to cast my cares on God's shoulders because he's way stronger than me, what I've found out, Rich, in 55 years. I turn on a comedy, man. I want to laugh. I want to do something silly. I want to break up, that whole type of seriousness. And if the grandkids aren't around and Doug's a gloomy monkey, then guess what? We're going to Amazon Prime and we're loading up a comedy because I'm going to laugh myself out of this stuff. Satan wants you to focus. Satan wants you to get negative. Satan wants you to get gloomy. Satan's sitting there evaporating all your joy through fear and all this other kind of crap. And by having a little glass of wine, cutting loose with some friends, getting some good belly laughs, hanging out with the brothers, watching a comedy, that sets all that crap that Satan tries to foist on you back about a couple of 100 yards.
Doug, that's the truth, man. One day I was driving home from work, and my son Levi was about maybe 4 or 5 years old, and they had just cut our trees, trimmed them way back, right? But he's probably 25 feet on the top of where they cut these things, standing up there with his hands on his hip, in his underwear, on top of the tree, and he sees me driving down the street, and he's waving at me. And I'm like, is that my son on the top of that tree? He's going to get killed, So I drive up and I'm like, Levi, how are you going to get down? And he looks at me and he goes, I don't know. He literally hadn't even thought of it. And I thought right there, Doug, I was like, you know what? We got to recapture some of that. It's like, I'm gonna climb up higher. I'm gonna climb up a tree. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
be foolish, but at the same time, man, let's return to the joy of trying some things, doing some things, getting out there and getting outside, man. Get outside. Get a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Get some wind in your face.
Get a mountain bike, bounce down the trails, man. It
Get
might
a mountain bike with a motor by Harley Davidson.
Hey man, what does the Warriors and Wild Men listener need to do, man?
Go to the podcast, Warriors and Wild Men. Sign up, subscribe, review it, rate it, leave us a comment. We always try to talk back, tell you guys what's up, and thanks for the comments and ideas for shows and podcasts. Let us know. Warriors and Wild Men.